Bridges, bridges in the sky. They are stone and steel. They are languages and letters. They are poetry and all. They are love and understanding, and they're better than equal. They are languages and letters. They are poetry and all. They are love and understanding, and they're better than equal. There are canyons, they are yawning in the night. They are rank and bitter anger, they are all devoid of life. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and soul foreboding, and they're oh so very wide. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and soul foreboding, and they're oh so very wide. Let us build a bridge of music, let us cross with a song. Let us find another canyon, let us rise another dawn. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're up and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and we off and on our way. Oh, and if someone should ask us where we're up and bound today, we will tell them building bridges and we off and on our way. We will tell them building bridges and we off and on our way.
We will tell them building bridges and be off and on our way. Thank you, Bill Staines, for your Bridges song and allowing us to use it for our entry. This is World Call In on Bridges Programming. You are listening to us on Wednesday morning from 10 to 12 o'clock, and that's Eastern Standard Time. Your host today is Susan Comont, Dennis Carius, and I'm Jeff Beller. And I'm going to try to get this so we can hear people a little better. There's a chat room open on Bridges Programming called Bridge to Humanity on Blog Talk. So if you're listening to us on Blog Talk, you can go right to that. The call-in number is 347-215-6731 if you're interested in calling in. And we're also on Google Hangouts. And I'd like you to remember that you can go to Google Hangouts and call in on Skype anywhere in the world if you're listening. The goal of our programming here is to give a humanitarian platform for anyone who has something to say to help humanity. Give everybody a chance to give their ideas out there, not just paid-for politicians, not just because the economic system controls our political system. And we think that, as someone said in our earlier shows, that why can't we just have people run for office without having two parties that are like gangs? I like that. That was a good thing. Two parties that are gang-like. And they don't help us. They help the very, very wealthy and like that. And our program last week, I think it was Sunday, why are we here as a species? Why are we here as human beings? What's the point of us being here? Are we doing more damage than good on the planet? We're helping ourselves a lot because of the economic system. And there's a few people who don't really give a damn about the planet or about humanity. They don't, as long as they're living very well and they're the kings of the world, they don't care about how many people they kill, how much damage they create in the environment, in the air, the water, or the soil. and eventually they'll wipe out the species. And the question is, the planet will probably wipe us out because it's not going to stand for the damage we're doing. And if we ever saw a nuclear war, well, the planet will be here for sure, but we'll be wiping out a lot of species. So there's another question somebody brought up today, or in one of the emails we received, and it said, "Are we better off to save our planet?" And that's what Dennis is always saying. We got to save our planet, to actually kill humanity right off, and then the planet will keep on going and maybe set up another species similar to us. And Susan will talk about this when she gets on the air shortly, about we are the last species left for a human species. We are the last group here. There's been several different human groups. I don't know the technical terms for it. She'll explain it better. Anyway, if you want to call in, please do. It's 347-215-6731, or go to our chat room, Bridge to Humanity, which is working on Blog Talk. I'm gonna make sure it's signed in. Yep, it's working fine. On the Hangouts on air, you'll notice there's a book visual. There's my face talking, and then hopefully there'll be more faces on this thing, and you'll be able to see a little more interesting stuff. But temporarily, we have another group we work with called Renew the Earth, and that's an environmental renewable energy website, and also it's 501c3 that talks about climate change and talks about all kinds of renewable energies and what they've been doing for years around the world. And Susan wrote a book called Illyria's World about a real robot, and I mean it's a real robot, it's physically real. And the grandchild and their experiences, their sort of experiences in their imagination when they walk around the world together as a robot and child. And it's a fun book to download free. We don't ask for money for it. And then we talk about the HREM, Human Renewable Energy Measure, or the HERM, HERM.com. We now have a website, theherm.com, or the HREM.org. So we have many sites. And then, of course, you can find us on Blog Talk Radio. Now, Dennis's idea, he said he's ready to drink the Kool-Aid to save the planet. Is that true, Dennis?
Well, I was half joking, Jeff, because you just told me about the Kool-Aid before that. So I was just joking.
But the thing is, are we doing better as a species and benefiting this planet and all of the species on it as a species? Are we doing more damage than good?
Yes, unfortunately, we are. And, we are smart enough to do more good than damage. But unfortunately, if a very, very small percentage, let's say less than 1% of us, the richest, the most powerful, want to be even more rich and even more powerful, then they can do more damage. For example, getting that oil out of the Middle East and selling it, at making a lot of money, and then that gets us into climate change, global warming. So we really are ruining this planet, but we are smart enough to go in another direction. Unfortunately, we have to stop being so greedy that millionaires, when they want to become billionaires, it's really hurting our planet.
But you see, you just mixed two metaphors up. Oh, wait a second. I just mixed two metaphors up myself just now by pushing the wrong buttons. You just mixed two metaphors up, Dennis. You're mixing money up with reality. And it's very interesting. I listen to NPR every so often, and they have the money, the economic stuff. I don't remember the money market. And they say we're going to listen to money now, where the economics hits real life. And I can't believe they can be so obvious about it and not understand what they just said. You're mixing currency up with reality. Now, that's a really funny thing, because how can you mix the two up? Why would you do that? I'm not answering you that. I'm not asking you that question to be facetious. It's not your fault you're asking that question. I have a cold. I'm sorry. I'm working the best I can with what I got. But the reality is, okay. This is a very good example. I really have a cold, right? I really don't feel well, and it's very hard to work when you don't feel well, or do something, or think even when you're not feeling well. Now, that's a reality of life. Now, it doesn't matter how much money I have, or how much money I want, or anything else. The reality is that nature said to me, you have a cold, or you have pneumonia, or you have whatever disease you're dying of, and you're going to die. That's what nature says. Now, all of a sudden, Dennis gets a bill, and we all have the same problem. You have it. Every human being in the world is faced with the reality of living. That means you got to have your education to know these things, to be able to communicate to a certain degree. I don't think we communicate well enough, if you ask my opinion. And we all have to have our food, and we need a certain amount of energy numbers for that. And we need our calories in water, or energy in water. And we need shelter. Now, so if we all agree that we need these things, which I think most human beings will agree to, I mean, our language is good enough for that, then I'm going to ask you a question, Dennis. Are you ready for the question?
I'm ready, Jeff.
If you get a tax bill in the mail, or a bill from the government that you haven't closed an account up, or you have a business that you haven't filed for, what does that have to do with reality?
Well, sometimes very, very little with reality. Have you ever heard of something called a dysfunctional government that needs reform?
Well, that has nothing to do with reality either, does it?
No, I mean, it's dysfunctional.
What was that?
It's just the opposite direction. Dysfunctional.
I'll give you another. Now, this is dysfunctional, but it's the reason for the dysfunctional government is because we're playing a game that has no connection to the reality of humanity. That's why it's dysfunctional. In other words, I have a friend of mine who's working for me, and he's working for me sort of, a few hours a day, helping me pick up sticks and, doing some plumbing for me. And he just comes over when he feels like it, because he has some free time and he needs some extra money, because money requires him to live. He's got to pay his rent and buy his food. The work he does for me is very real. The money I give him is really not, but he can convert that money into something that he can live on, even though the value of that money is irrelevant, because he's really saving my life, just like any doctor would. So why shouldn't he have a good quality of life? What happened to him was his girlfriend or wife was driving his automobile, and she got into a very bad accident, hit by a truck, and she had to be med lifted to an emergency room by helicopter. And because of this, she never filed with the insurance company that she had an accident. Therefore, his insurance was canceled. Therefore, when his insurance was canceled, his license is automatically revoked. Now, they send you paperwork in the mail for this. However, he never got it because they had moved, so they had the wrong addresses on. So all of a sudden, he was supposed to come over yesterday, and he didn't show up. And why didn't he show up? Because he was picked up and locked up and put in jail overnight because he was driving with a suspended license, which he didn't know, and no insurance, and that's why his license was suspended. Now, he did nothing wrong, and neither did she. She had an accident. Now, that's a form of a dysfunctional government because of the paperwork involved. It has no regard for reality. And there's something radically wrong with our system. Now, there may be a better way to do it. I don't really know. But I do know that the economic system, the insurance is canceled because of economics. Your license is suspended because it has to control, it needs control for the insurances, so they're covered legally. And if you say that we have a dysfunctional government, certainly we have a dysfunctional government. That's obvious. The question is why, and what can we do about it? And if you think that our government, by putting another George Bush in or Hillary Clinton in, is going to change anything that connects our economic system with reality through political means, I think you're delusional. And I think that most of the people in our country and around the world are basically delusional, that they think they can fix this with a voting act without facing the fact that our voting is controlled, our political system is controlled by the economic system, which the guys who control the economic system control everything. So we need to change the economic system to be based on something that's physical, like a human energy unit that can't be manipulated. Now, that's why we're doing the program. That's why we have the herm.com and the hrem.org. That's why we have a nonprofit company that talks about renewable energy and humanity. We're not talking about politics. Matter of fact, I'm doing a talk next week in Herkimer. I think it's Herkimer County. I'm not sure if it's Herkimer County, but it's in near Shushan, Cambridge, New York. And the place I'm talking at is a nonprofit, and they say, we don't want you to do anything political. Well, I don't talk about political issues. I don't believe political issues are going to ever change anything, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat or a conservative or an independent. Doesn't matter. But action with the economics between humanity and the political system or the economic system. So if we can connect the economic system to something that basically takes into account that all human beings have value, and the value is measurable, and it can't be manipulated, we can then simply say that we can at that point, once we get that measure in position, you will change your dysfunctional government to a point where we have police who aren't going to lock somebody up because of the rule of law is set up to protect the economic system or the people who run the economic system, the stockholder. And this is basically, he went to jail to protect the stockholders of the insurance companies. I'm going to a doctor to see these things, and she has to get paid, and she's got to pay insurances to make sure she doesn't get sued because of the pharmaceutical industry and the way our economic system is set up and the way our laws are set up. Now, if you go to a country, let's say Cuba, you don't have these problems because they have a basically different economic system. I'm not saying it's better or worse, but all their children or everybody's educated to as far as they could go without any cost to that society. They all have basic needs met. Unfortunately, if you talk against the government, you'll probably be put in jail or even worse, executed. And that's because of, again, the economic system. They're concerned that the outside world is going to influence their political structure. And their political structure, by the way, Even Castro is a king. I'm sure he lives better than most people live. He's got armed guards and armies, just like any king would have. And if you don't think Hillary Clinton or George Bush are royalty, you've got another guest coming. And if you think if you elect a guy off the street to be president and that family doesn't become royalty, you've got another guest coming. So the only answer that I and the people I work with can see, and when I say work, we don't get paid. Work is different for us. We work because we want to do something that's beneficial toward humanity. Everybody on this program does not get paid. We take everything we can afford to do out of our own pockets to try to produce a program and give people a soapbox that helps humanity. That's our goal with Bridges Programming. We invite you, if you're an activist and you need a platform, we invite you to speak on Bridges Program. We will give you an hour of podcasting a week if you choose to have that. And if you think you have something more to say, it's fine. We'll give you a longer time if we have the space to do it. At the same time, we will not condone anyone who preaches hate or benefits one group to another group. If you think that a certain party is better than others, you can't have that. You have to be able to see that both parties have value and they're trying to do something in their own way. We disagree with that. We disagree with the system we have now, and that's because it's controlled by the economic system. There isn't any part of the political party that's going to work anywhere in the world because the economic system, which is bigger than all political parties and bigger than all belief systems, is controlling these parties. They're totally subjective. If anybody wants to argue that point, we're more than willing to take your comments, but I won't. In other words, it's very hard to get your mind around why it's what's going on, because it's been going on since the beginning of civilization, since the first king started, since we gave the opportunity to an individual to be the king. We elected king or a anointed king or whatever you want to, however you got a king in place. And you've heard of the United Kingdoms, and that's to control the economic system. That's why they united, to control the policies of the people. Whether you're George Soros or you're the Koch brothers or you're, what's the guy's name who just died, who ran all these Gannett company, all the news media. I think he just died. What's his name? Dennis, who's the big guy who runs all these theoretically right-wing radio stations?
Oh, I don't know, Jeff. I cannot answer that one.
Susan, maybe she'll remember. There's someone who just passed away, he runs Murdoch, Rudolph Murdoch, I think, just passed away today.
Okay.
And he
Today?
runs. Yeah, I think I heard that on the news. I may be mistaken, but I thought I heard that in the corner of my speaker system when I had listened. I listen to a lot of news in the morning when I wake up to hear to try to be sort of abreast of what main media is telling me. Anyway, that's where we're going with that. So what do you think? You think we should get rid of humanity to help save the world, or what?
I think humanity should just reform things. I think we're smart enough to reform things, but unfortunately, it really has a lot to do with greed. I really believe, the word greed, G-R-E-E-D.
Yeah.
There's a man who came over here. This was in the 1830s. He came to America from France. His name was Alexis de Tocqueville. And he says, I love your Constitution, I love the Bill of Rights, but I'm sorry, it's not going to last when the capitalism allows the very rich to just take control, even to take control of the politicians, whether they're right-wing or left-wing, doesn't matter. we maybe if we had campaign finance reform, this could help. But
okay,
we don't.
but Dennis, I don't want you to. I know what you're saying, but he was stating the obvious, and Marx stated the obvious. And the question is, so what? What are you going to do about it? That's the question.
That's what
We're not disagreeing, but campaign finance reform, as we discussed many times on this program, has to be put in by the politicians who are controlled by the economic system. So how in the world are you going to get this? I mean, look, we got a guy who's been fighting for campaign finance reform forever, and that's Bernie Sanders. He's running for office against Hillary Clinton on it. But even if he got in, he has to get it passed through the Senate and the Congress. How are you going to get that to happen? This guy's almost 80 years old. I think he's 82 years old or 79 years old. He's older than I am. He can't keep fighting like this. He can't keep bucking his head to the same old, same old. He wants to see change made. He wants to benefit someone. If you go back to our Constitution, you want to go back to our Constitution, most people refer back to our great Constitution, which was actually started by a bunch of fat old wealthy people from England, from the Great Britain, from the United Kingdom. So they didn't know any better. They had a good idea, but they didn't want people to vote who didn't own land. They didn't want women to vote because they felt they weren't smart enough. They didn't want slaves to vote because they didn't believe they had the same value as another human being. So why would you go back to our founders and our great Constitution? Why would you even think about it? It has obviously been flawed from the first minute it was created. And so was Britain's. So was, Great Britain or England or the United Kingdom. It's always been based on keeping the economy status quo to take advantage of individuals to keep them in slavery. That's exactly how it's been set up. It has no value whatsoever. And that holds true in Africa and the Golden Heights, Israel, Syria, Russia. It's set up to make slaves of the people of the world so a few people can benefit by it. So why would you keep on going back to a fellow who stated the obvious rather than someone like Buckminster Fuller who said something that was major? That Buckminster Fuller was a big name. He invented the geodesic dome. He's gotten many degrees, world renowned. And he said we have to base our economic system on kilowatt hours, energy units. But you don't hear that in mainstream media at all, do you? No one's ever. Matter of fact, most people don't even know who Buckminster Fuller was. We're going to be doing a program, hopefully called The Bucky Show, about Buckminster Fuller. And it's really important to know. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Dennis.
You ever heard of the HERM?
After
we take our break, I haven't, an alternative that might be a solution to this.
Well, it's we need to get people to get out there and use the soapbox to say it's not fair, just like Alexei de Tocqueville. What was that? De Tocqueville, right? Alexius de Tocqueville?
Alexei de Tocqueville.
De Tocqueville. And he was saying it's going to be unfair in a few more years. You got a great constitution, but it's just not fair. When the big guys take over the place, you guys are going to get screwed over. He was obviously right, but he didn't give us any answers, did he? He just said that, things are really bad. And in this country, it looks like it's a great idea. And I think they had ideas, the founders did. But anyway, we're going to come back here, and everyone's got their own way of changing things. So we're going to take about a 4-minute break. I got to go blow my nose and like that because I got a cold. And we'll be back with you in about 4 minutes. Here is Alien Folklife with where they think that the way they got to fix things is with New Age thinking, and that's called the New Age bookstore with Hot Dog Heaven. But the reality hit them when this New Age bookstore turned into be a hot dog stand. So listen to the words to this. It's a cute song. Thank you, Joan and Paul, for letting us use your work on the air. And they also wrote the energy song, which we go out with every time. Okay, here we are. Hot dog heaven. We'll be back in 4 minutes. Please stick with us.
I'm an ordinary new age guy with 3 kids and a wife, looking for the answers to the mysteries of life. I've regressed through 13 lifetimes to try and make amends, and on Wednesdays I go drumming with my new age friends. I know that life's a journey and everything must change, but something happened yesterday that left me feeling strange. I was going to buy some crystals at my favorite store downtown when I turned the corner and looked up. This is what I found. My new age crystal bookstore is hot dog heaven now, where once I searched for inner peace, the innards from a cow. They'll still make you one with everything, but it's not the same somehow. Dog instead of dog top, and hot dog heaven now. My inner child was angry. To be frank, he was incensed. But my inner parent told him there are no accidents. Some cosmic force has caused the plans I made to be reversed and brought me to this hot dog stand, perhaps not for the worst. Before I gave up eating, to buy them by the dozen. But what if in a former life this hot dog was my cousin? Joseph Campbell said, "Well, your listening you ought to follow, but this double-foot long chili dog is awful hard to swallow." My new age crystal bookstore is hot dog heaven now, where once I searched for inner peace, there's innards from a cow. They'll still make you one with everything, but it's not the same somehow. It's munching and not eating, and hot dog heaven now. Everything got me thinking, and I know it's kind of hard, but if there's a hot dog heaven, could there be a hot dog God? Are the streets all paved with mustard in that holy hot dog land? Does Oscar Mayer guard the gate with a wiener in each hand? And if there's a hot dog heaven, is there a tofu hell where carnivores run screaming when they hear the dinner bell? Some questions we can't answer, and perhaps we shouldn't try. But as that neon Frank lights up the night, I sit and wonder why. My new age store is hot dog heaven now, where once I searched for inner peace, there's innards from a cow. They'll still make you one with everything, but it's not the same somehow. It's kraut instead of crystals, and hot dog heaven now. Pepsi, not recovery. Onion rings, not earrings. Trash cans and not ash cans, and hot dog heaven now.
And we are back. Thank you very much, Joan and Paul, for letting us use your work. They do a great job. They're alien folk life, and they do a lot of folk song and good stuff. Where we're talking about why are we on this planet? What are we here? I guess Susan just joined us, so let's get Susan on the air here. Hello,
I have an
Susan.
opinion on that.
Go ahead.
Hi, Jeff.
Yay!
I have an opinion.
Oh, good.
Jeff, are you still there?
I am.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, you want to hear my opinion?
Yes.
Well, wait a second. But we have to start commenting. Susan remarked, listening to one of our programs, that we don't comment on her work, and
No, on each other, what each other says, that, we kind of speak out, and then a new subject or a new thought is brought up, but there's no back and forth. So I don't know. I just thought it might make better programming if we go back and forth a bit and then go on to something else.
right. But I'm just saying that I don't know why that happens, but we should try doing that.
Yeah, well, we'll try and make things better. We're always trying to make things.
I always
better.
interrupt Dennis.
Uh-oh, Dennis, do you feel like you're always being interrupted?
Wow, Dennis is going to comment on Susan's opinion next, too.
Uh-oh, I've opened up Pandora's box, obviously.
Wow.
Anyway, I was going to say something, a little different angle on why we're here, and I get this kind of feeling when I'm writing these Earthlings letters for the Renew the Earth .org website, and these are letters that I write to an imagined children type audience, and I call them Earthlings. And all my life, I've had fascination with anything that has to do with the natural world. And I became a natural science illustrator because I wanted to look, even more closely at everything and try to understand, just how the forms of nature
How things work, right?
Right, put together, and how beautifully orchestrated, the evolution has been. And there's so much, that we don't know, and there's quite a lot that we think we know. And so I'm trying to convey to children both these things, what we don't know and how wonderfully mysterious and that is, and it's not a bad thing we don't know things. And I don't think it's possible to know everything about nature because it's been here so long before we arrived. I mean, we've only been a species for, depending on where you want to start our evolutionary beginnings, 2 million years ago, or 20,000 years ago, or, there's all kinds of debates on that.
Hold it. I want to ask you a question. I brought this up early before you got into the studio. You said that we're the last species, human species. Can you go explain that?
We're the last variety within our species.
What does that mean?
Other Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens. We're all Homo. There've been several. We're all Homo sapiens, but all the other varieties of Homo sapiens have gone extinct except us. We're Homo erectus, and we're the last ones left. They were Neanderthals were in a group. They interbred with, they intermarried or whatever you want to call it. Historically with Homo erectus, but we're the only ones left as far as people understand the evolution of the human species. There were other varieties of Homo sapiens historically, but they've all dropped out. And what is that? Are you coughing and sneezing and sniveling over there, Jeff? Okay, I don't know. I think it's gone off to get himself a cup of coffee or something. Anyway, so that's kind of.
I don't think he's coughing or sneezing. I think he's building something.
Oh, maybe he is.
No, I'm not. I'm just trying to heat up some tea for my cold. But I'm listening to you I'm listening to you through my speakers.
It's kind of a humbling thing that we are the last variety of our species left on this planet, and usually when a species is cornered in that way to not have a whole lot of varieties on the planet, that can be not a good thing from what we've observed of other species. The varieties and diversity are a really good thing within a species, as far as if you want that particular creature to survive into the future of the planet and all that. But it's kind of interesting to think in the long time of life existence on this planet and the very short time of human existence on this planet. If you see that timeline, that's another humbling experience right there. But anyway, when I'm writing these Earthlings letters to the little Earthlings, I'm trying to help them understand that they are a part of nature, and that they do belong on this planet, and that they should or can, and I don't want to make imperatives, but they should allow themselves to be fascinated and enjoy nature around them and not be fearing it. Of course, there's lots of things that their parents can teach them about, that keep them safe and things like that. But mostly, what can be explored is not going to harm you. So we have been separated from nature because there are a lot of forces that we can't control, natural weather forces and things like that have frightened us over the ages, and various diseases that have wiped us out over the ages. So these things are always going to be with us, but still we need to be brave and go forward and realize that these are cycles of nature and we're part of nature, and if it stops us from being fascinated and enjoying the whole processes of what's happening around us, and the other species and the other plants and the other, I'm actually writing a letter now about rocks to the Earthlings, and we're starting out with the sedimentary rocks and the fossils that can be found in those rocks and how that happens. These things to me, and this is just my feeling, have kept me alive, have made me feel like this is why we're here. We're here to learn, we're here to enjoy, and we're here to just be a part of what's happening on this earth and try not to harm it. With our existence,
and not to kill one another, and not to destroy each other. The problem here is that since we evolved as a species, and I want to get back to the beginnings of why we're doing this program, and specifically why are we here. I think that we were evolved in such a way where we learned as a species how to stay alive like every other animal in the world, on this planet.
Well, that's true.
But then when we had excess, as Dennis calls it, the greed, and I don't believe in that word because it's an emotion. It's like hate. It's like hate. It's not a real word because there's no way to measure greed. There's no really way to do that unless you intentionally want to spoil something, and that's no longer greedy. It's called insanity, to just destroy things for no reason. But that's another story. So when you say that, as we evolved, some people, and I think it's a very small portion of the world's population that believes we're here not to get more from another human being, not to take advantage of, but to cooperate with each other, not compete with each other. Competition would be fun to a certain degree, but the competition is to learn, in my opinion. Competition is to learn how we can better ourselves as a species, and then cooperate with each other and go and build that better item or create that better idea to do something, and then again maybe have a competition to better self again, and that's how we evolve. But if we keep on just competing and not working as and not working together, not I just lost my word.
Yeah, I want to continue with that idea a little bit about cooperation.
Go ahead. That's the
we
word.
are. May I comment just a little more? It's like a cul-de-sac, but I think it might clarify something. I don't know what. When we talk about cooperation within our species, we're a species that can cooperate better than anything else on so far. I mean, you could say that a hive of bees is cooperating wonderfully, but they're only producing, what they need to survive, the honey, and then reproducing themselves. But when we cooperate as a human species, as Jeff was saying, we're making all kinds of inventions that, that easier for the other members of our species. Women started out spinning yarn on spinning wheels, and for the weavers, and that's only maybe 200 years ago.
I want to comment on the bee thing, but the bees are on the planet to pollinate the flowers that benefit all of humanity. But what in the world do humans do by cutting down trees and making spinning wheels and raising sheep to make wool to put into the spinning wheel so they can sell it? That's my point. What are we here for? We're not doing anything. Go ahead.
No, we create an extremely intricate construct around ourselves for our convenience, for our comfort, for our furthering of our families and our species into the future. And this elaborateness is only possible because of the way that we can communicate with words to each other. And we can communicate complex ideas and emotions to each other. And we have the hands then to build these things and to, go from that point to another point of development of contraptions and processes and, et cetera, et cetera. And this is our unique aspect at this point. I mean, the dinosaurs were unique because they were so huge, but they lasted a lot longer than we have so far, and their hugeness seemed to be some kind of advantage to them at the time in history when they were dominant on this earth. Well, our dominance at this point is, I believe, because of our ability to communicate and so intricately communicate complex ideas and emotions, and it becomes more and more clear as history goes forward from our time now into the future. Because what we have, I mean, I'm sitting here with a phone talking on a radio program that's on the internet and going worldwide. This is immense communication. We are making more and more instrumentation to communicate, and it's becoming. This is our emphasis as a species: is to communicate. And we had several programs about propaganda before, and propaganda can be good and it can be not so good. It can be very self-serving to one little group and things like that, and we understand that. And but we're constantly filtering these things and constantly trying to, maybe move things in the best direction that possible for the benefit of our species on this planet and for the survival of our species on this planet. And you don't want to just have people who are emphasizing survival. But survival has many. There's a point where survival is no longer just survival. It's all your desires. I want to survive with all these piles of gold in my house. I want to survive with, all this, these many mansions that I can go to one after another. These are this is in excess. When we talk, any other creature on Earth, they survive, and then, they start to cooperate with whatever's around them because they know that they're dependent on what's around them. Like Jeff was saying, the bees, they're dependent on the flowers blooming so that they can make the honey, or the flowers are dependent on the bees so that, they can be pollinated. It goes back and forth, and there's no way of knowing, as with most things in nature, which came first, because it's such a complete and utterly wonderful mechanism that's been evolving on this planet, and all of us as living entities, the plants, the animals, even things that we don't perceive ourselves as being living. There is even in the way that rocks form, there's a certain, you could define some living qualities in those in those formations. In geological time, which is a completely different kind of time than ours. It's a time that we can't even probably mentally perceive because it's so long. But what we need to know is not, survival of our species. We have to know when to say, okay, this is enough. We are surviving. At this point, let's start cooperating. Our needs are met. Our basic needs are met. Let's start cooperating. You see what I'm trying to say with that?
Well, yeah, the point I'm making is that we're the only species. Why are we here? And we know why the bees are here. The dinosaurs may have been here for, I don't know, maybe to change the. I'm looking at something a little differently now. I'm saying, if I'm asking a question, why we're here, life to me has a cycle. There was the times when dinosaurs, you mentioned that there were different species that had died out, we're the last ones left. Maybe we are here to actually wipe ourselves out and clean the planet, wipe it out with nuclear weapons, restart it over again. Maybe that's why we're here, to actually.
Well, those kind of ideas have been communicated through religion for thousands of years. The Armageddon, the end of the world, and I don't know why those concepts arose so far back in our evolution. Maybe we have that is a purpose.
But and the other thing, pardon me.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that is true.
Okay, but we have something different than the bees. Like Dennis was saying earlier, that maybe we're here to change the way we do politics, but I don't think that's the answer. I think that's too superficial. I think that we have a much.
It's a byproduct. It's a byproduct of what we're doing right now.
The politics is here to control a game that we play, that we make up the rules that aren't based on anything with nature. The part I want to bring out is we have a brain that's different than the bees, I think. We have a purpose that's different than most animals, and I don't quite know what that purpose is, and that's why I'm asking you. Dennis, what do you think our purpose is?
Wait.
Go ahead.
That I was trying to say previously was that what we have that's unique is our communicating ability, and we're making it more and more sophisticated as we go into the future. Now, if you want to try to figure out why we have that particular strength among us, but that is our key strength. And you can figure out, maybe, if you start to think in those terms, what was the purpose of that key? And, why can we communicate so well? What is the purpose of that? Why is it better than any other species that we understand? There's a reason that this is happening, that we're evolving a communicating ability that is extraordinary.
Okay, Dennis, you're on. You got 4 minutes to answer that.
Well, I might need more like 28 minutes to answer that after the break, because this probably would be a better show for our Sunday show, because I think that we were put here about 8,000 years ago. If you read any of the Bibles, human beings have not been on this planet that long. And I really think that we have the freedom to do whatever we want. We not only a body, but we also have a spirit. Are there any other animals on this earth that can communicate the way we are communicating? I mean, and I don't mean it has to be over the internet or by phone. I mean, even if you put them across the table from each other, can they actually communicate like we are? We not only have our body.
No, they actually can communicate in some cases better than we can. If you look at let's say chickens, or you look at insects or microbes, even they have a communication that we don't even conceive to understand. Look at dolphins. Look at dolphins. Look at different species. It's not like across the table. A matter of fact, Dennis, if you live with someone long enough, you can actually understand what they're thinking by the clues in the air. In other words, if the sun comes out on a beautiful day and the wind blows a certain way, or the sun comes out, you don't have to communicate verbally. You can understand because you're with that human being for a long time. And you also feel that way about your animals too. Your animals communicate with you. So you can't just blanketly make a statement that, or you can make the statement, but I think that there's much more that we don't even think, that we don't even conceive of yet, that we have the ability to understand, but we're nowhere near that. We're nowhere near as smart as we think we are. And I think that we're doing major damage because we think we're smarter than we are. We think if we have a degree, we're the smartest person in that degree, even though people with the same degrees argue amongst themselves. So we have a problem in our species. And you see where I'm going with that comment I'm trying to make to you?
Yes. But the problem is we really do have freedom to do whatever we want. I mean, that's great. I'm real happy to have freedom of speech, freedom of the press. I love that concept of freedom.
But if you don't have freedom of speech, you don't have freedom of the press, because otherwise we wouldn't be arguing. We wouldn't have the problem with a government that is dysfunctional, would we?
Do I have to hang up this phone?
No.
You said we don't have freedom of speech?
No.
I mean, oh, wow. I thought that's what we were doing right now.
Well, you and I are communicating within ourselves, but as far as the way we discuss freedom of speech is not what you and I or the whole population says. It's what's controlling. It's what's controlling our wants and our needs. Not our needs, it's controlling our wants. So you go on the air and you say, well, I need a big TV screen, or I need a computer. Those control our wants, not our needs. So our freedom of speech is being manipulated by the way Susan was talking earlier about this great way we can communicate. And communications may be our salvation, but it may also be our destruction, because it's giving us a dysfunctional government, as you were saying earlier. It's giving us a dysfunctional economic system, as I always say, that's controlling our government. And what Susan's saying is it may be also the salvation, that if we can get our information out that people agree upon, that we don't have to have wants that are going to destroy the planet and destroy our species and other species, then we may be able to solve the problems. And to do that, we have to all come together. And that brings us to, believe it or not, halfway through our program, where we say we the people have to come together and use our communications to help humanity. We'll be back in about 4 minutes, and we'll continually discuss what, if you can remember what Susan said, we'll try to bring that back out about communications. Here comes We the People by the Foothills Trio.
We the people, hand in hand. We the people understand that there's an answer, there's a way. We the people have to say. So send the orders to prepare, that we the people do declare that the good news and the word, we the people will be heard. We the people, let's prepare. There's a message in the air, and it's moving across the land. And if you listen, you can hear it well, my friend. We know the time has come to take our heads out of the sand, 'cause if we don't, the chance might never come again. The future is in reason, not building ways of war, and the time has come for reason to be heard. The purpose of the people, so what's this declaration for? It's why our fathers told us, word for word, let it be heard. We the people, hand in hand. We the people understand that there's an answer, there's a way. We the people have to stay. So send the orders to prepare, that we the people do declare. Send the good news and the word, we the people will be heard. We the people everywhere. And we won't accept excuses, and we won't accept the lies of those who lead our nations into hell. It's time to call the bluff and say to them, enough, enough. It's time we all should hear the tolling of the bell. And it's time to see the hungry, and it's time to heal the pain, and it's time to be our weapons into clouds. It's time to hear the voices that have risen once again. It's the voice of the people, clear and loud, singing proud. We the people, hand in hand. We the people understand that there's an answer, there's a way. We the people have to say. So send the orders to prepare, that we the people do declare. Send the good news and the word, we the people will be heard. We the people everywhere. We the people, hand in hand.
We the people understand that there's an answer, there's a way. We the people have to stay. So send the orders to prepare. That we the people do declare. Send the good news, send the word. We the people will be heard. We the people. We the people. We the people. Everywhere. And we are back. The phone number here is 347-215-6731. You're listening to Bridges Programming. This is Wednesday World Call In, and you can call in wherever you are in the world, or you can join us on our chat room to Bridge to Humanity, or you can get us on Hangouts on air. So we're here, and if you want to call in and put your 2 cents in, you're welcome. We know we have listeners out there. We just need for you to call in and give your opinion. And everybody has an opinion. 347-215-6731. I think that's the number.
Well, say it again.
215.
Wait a minute. Dennis, is that right?
No, it's 347-215-6731.
Right. And we have a chat room open called Bridge to Humanity, so you can chat with us if you choose. And like that. So we're back here, and Dennis does not want to drink the Kool-Aid. He thinks I was kidding. So if he won't drink the Kool-Aid, who will? And we want to sacrifice.
What does that mean?
Well, should we all commit suicide by having nuclear bombs dropped on everybody because we want more stuff? Well, we don't need more, but we want more. So if we want more stuff, it's just like drinking the Kool-Aid. Do we want more stuff enough to kill ourselves? And that's what I'm looking at, drinking the Kool-Aid. The economic system is saying we have to have more stuff. And if we have to kill one another to get more stuff, come drink the Kool-Aid. And that's what I'm coming from. That's what we're doing. We're all drinking the Kool-Aid because of the economic system is making us do it. It's actually the communication system we have now is controlling ourselves with mainstream media, with like the Murdoch Group and the Fox News, and they're controlling us to a point where we keep on thinking that if we vote the right people in, it'll change things. I'm sorry I'm sniffling, but I've got a bad cold.
Can I say something like go blow your nose or something?
I did that, and I did that, and it didn't work. And okay. Well, anyway, I'm gonna come off the air a minute and let you guys keep on talking because I have to get off the air. Go ahead.
I wanted to make a comment because I want to clean up some of what I said previously because I know that there's lots of, for whatever reason, people tune out if they think that somehow you've got something a little bit wrong. You use the wrong word, you use the wrong grammar, you misspell something or whatever, and then they just tune out and dismiss anything that you have to say, which is a shame because none of us is perfect and all that. But when I was referring to our species of Homo erectus, we have all these words about that science has assigned to how you define what's going on with the species and all that. And I didn't use the word genus, which is where all the humans are supposedly, that's the word for our group of developing creatures. Genus Homo, Homo, and we are we are Homo sapiens, and we become the dominant development of that genus over the past maybe 20,000 years. And these are all things that are mutable and can be challenged and stuff like that. But you want, it still is trying to say that our variety, our Homo sapien, um, uh, group at this point, we're the last variant of genus Homo, and that was the point. Not how I said it badly or used the wrong words or whatever. We're the last variety, you know, of this development, and that may not be a good thing, because we've destroyed the other varieties over the many thousands of years that our species our genus has been, our species as the genus Homo has been developing. You could, you know, and you can trace it back maybe to Ethiopia 200,000 years ago, or you can go 2 million years ago, you know, the beginnings of what you know, science maybe thinks is our ancestors, you know, that were very closely related because of the chromosomes and the genes that they can compare and whatever. So, you know, I'm not an anthropologist, but I have an understanding that, you know, our diversity has been, you know, we're not as diverse as we used to be. And you can see over time, you know, whenever there was a new area, like Australia was evolving, you know, pretty separate from all the other continents for forever, you know, however you want to express that. And there were native populations on there that when the Europeans did come to Australia and dump off first their prisoners, and eventually they figured, well, maybe we'll, you know, some of this land is really nice, maybe we'd like to have it. And then started, you know, colonizing, as they call it. The native populations were pushed aside and killed like they were, you know, rabbits, and they weren't human. You know, that was, you know, this was a variety of our species, genus Homo. You know, this was one of our diverse varieties, and the other, you know, I don't know, you know, do you really see other species once they have a certain amount of comfort in their location and where they put their hive or whatever? I mean, they don't go out trying to destroy. I mean, I don't know, maybe there are some, but do they go out of their way to destroy others of their group or of their genus, just for the heck of it? You know, I mean, are humans unable to be satisfied, you know, with what they've got? I mean, is that our flaw? I mean, can we not just say, this is enough, and now I'm going to enjoy my life on my limited amount of time on this planet, and try to understand, you know, what's going on around, and the beauty of it, and et cetera, and create some stuff that other people can enjoy? I mean, isn't there a point like that, or is that our tragic flaw, that we can't stop wanting more stuff, more property, pushing other humans out of it in the process? I don't know.
Well, I know.
Okay.
Imagine if 99% of us could stop doing that and go in a better direction. But let's say the richest, the most powerful 1% won't stop. I won't say can't stop, but let's say there's greed, and those millionaires want to become billionaires or trillionaires. I really think that they could control everything. Politicians, mainstream media, so we'd be brainwashed when we want to know what's going on over in the Middle East. I think that we could stop and solve this problem. I just think it's something called greed. That's my opinion.
Well, you keep on going back to greed, Dennis, but you are more greedy than the person who's working in Burger King right now. And how greedy is the person? And how greedy is the person working in Burger King? Because they have a place to live, and they have a car they're driving, but they want a bigger car, they want a bigger house, they want a Mac instead of a PC. Come on, Dennis. Who's to say what greed is? It's an emotion. It has nothing to do with anything at all, and it has nothing to do with money at all. It has no bearing on any of it.
Wow, I think it has a lot to do with what's wrong with this government, with this nation, and even with this planet.
Well, how do you measure it? How do you say that if I have $1 billion and I want $1 trillion, who's to say that I'm greedy? I want more, just like you want more, just like the person in McDonald's who's living from hand to mouth. They want more, and they have enough. Need more than that. Would you say a monkey is greedy if they want more food because they're hungry, or a 3-year-old is greedy because they have to eat? I mean, who's to make that determination what greed is? It's nothing more than a word that the mainstream media put into our vocabulary that has nothing to do with anything, but it just keeps us into a cul-de-sac of not looking at the problem. All these things are put in by mainstream media. The idea of voting is a mainstream media. I'm going back well before the United States was ever conceived. Greed has been put in into language by the establishment of religion. All these things have started just to keep us occupied. So the largest population is controlled by the minority of the population. And I can't tell you whether it's 1% or 5%, but I do know that the system itself is wrong. It's simply wrong. And I can't call it greed because you can't measure greed. You and I are just as greedy as Warren Buffett or Bill Gates, or we want more. We always want a little more. We want to be able to influence people in our own way, or propagandize people right now because we have a belief system that we think is better for humanity. We're not saying we're right. We're saying this is what we believe because the other system is not working right. We may be entirely wrong with our belief system. Like, I have people who like to work for the Working Families Party, and they really believe in it. And they have the Green Party. They really believe in it. And you have the Republican Party. They really believe in it. And the Democratic Party, they really believe in it. Are they wrong? Are they greedy because they want more so they can put money into their parties? I mean, where do you come up, where do we come up with that word greed from? Where do we come up with who's right and who's wrong? Go ahead.
So, yeah, as I'm not talking about that 3-year-old who has not eaten in 2 days, and when they grab food, I'm not saying that's greed, right? I'm saying that if it's that billionaire you're talking about wants to become a trillionaire, it's how they do it, Jeff. I'm not saying they all would be greedy.
Well, let me ask you a question.
What they want to do is, yes, go ahead.
If a monkey kills another monkey because they took his food, is that monkey greedy?
I didn't say greedy.
Well, what's the difference between a millionaire wanting to be a billionaire? I don't understand the correlation.
I have the answer.
May I?
The answer is how they do it. I mean, they're not greedy if they want to become a trillionaire by designing new solar panels for roofs. That's not greedy. But if there's
why should they have that much more than somebody else? Go ahead.
If they can get that oil out of the Middle East by putting a dictator in that country, you take that democratically elected leader out of there, replace him with a dictator like we did over in Iran, for instance. We put the Shah of Iran in there. I don't think it's right for us to become millionaires or billionaires by getting oil from under the ground over there and then coming over here and selling it and getting a good price on that. Of course, it's a great price. It's free when you get it from over in the Middle East at no charge. But are they happy over there when their democratically elected leader is taken out and replaced by a dictator? And then now we say, oh, those terrorists, whether it's the Shiites or the Sunnis or ISIS, I think a lot of this terrorism is being provoked by our dependence on that oil that's under the ground over there.
Well, you're hitting a lot of topics, but the point, Susan was going to make a point. Go ahead, Sue. Were you going to say something earlier?
Sorry.
Well, and it was just like a general definition of what you guys are talking about. Anybody can be caught and make a Faustian, what they call a Faustian bargain. And a Faustian bargain, I mean, it can be at any level and to any degree. We all face this kind of thing. And the definition of a Faustian bargain is an agreement in which a person abandons his or her spiritual values or moral principles in order to obtain wealth or other benefits. And they often call this a deal with the devil, or you're bargaining with the devil. And this doesn't mean that somehow, everything's over for you. You can probably, say, oh, I made a mistake and I'll never do that again. But if you continue to make these kind of, if this is what you base your life on, as Dennis is, I think, saying that they're all, at the level he's talking about, it's people who obviously, don't need any more, but they can't stop themselves from continuing to obtain this wealth and power, and they can't stop. It's an addiction of some kind, and it's causing a lot of damage around them, which they choose not to notice or can't stop themselves. So that I don't know. I mean, it's an addiction, I guess. But what you're saying is that this can happen at any level. We say, well, I would like to have, only the most expensive, whatever shoes.
I'll give you a for instance, Dennis.
I don't say that we're going through to make those shoes.
I'll give you a for instance, Dennis. I just bought a Prius that's plug-in, right? Now that's a nice car, right?
Right.
And I'm getting my electric for about $100. I'm getting my miles to about 50 to 100 miles to a gallon. So I'm really doing quite well, right?
Yes.
And I get my electric free when I drive in from my house. It costs me nothing to fill up my car with electric because of solar panels. And then I go into Albany, 15 miles away on electric, and I plug into behind the place I buy my food, and that's free. And I fill my car back up again in 2 hours, and I drive home. So I just got my transportation for 30 miles for zero, where a poor person would have to either go on a bus or they'd have to get into a car. And if they're getting 30 miles to a gallon, it costs them $5 or $4 to fill up their car with fuel. And they can't afford it where I can. So there's something radically wrong with that scenario, is it there not?
Well, when you say wrong, I don't think there's anything wrong with you having a Prius. I think that's great.
But why doesn't a poor person who doesn't have the money, working in McDonald's or working to keep alive, have a car that costs them nothing to operate?
Well, that's something that they should maybe try to do instead of maybe some other things that they don't need to do. But
like what?
Spending money on.
Like what? Tell me how. That's what a Republican would say. Go ahead.
Well, and we do have things in this country like minimum wage, and we have, for example, in other words, we do make it easy, like education. We have free grade school and free high school even if the parents are unemployed.
But the reality of that doesn't mean anything. We have people who actually took out loans and have college degrees who are working in McDonald's because they can't get a job.
Right.
So what does that have to do? So why? And you're saying to me that if a person, they can strive to work harder than they're working now to get a $30,000 car when they can't afford to pay the rent?
Well, that's the country that. Did you ever hear the word capitalism as opposed to socialism or communism?
But those are just names, just like the word greed is. It has nothing to do with anything. They're just names to keep ourselves in a cul-de-sac so we can label things. Why not just make sure that if we as a society have the best technology that we can come up with, it's shared with the entire society. So the person who doesn't have affluence as far as our gain goes, our economic gain goes, be it socialism or capitalism or communism, we all work together to make sure that all technology, they've got an older car, so they turn their car into a group of people who work an hour a day, and they convert the car to an electric car, so they don't have to buy the fossil fuel that you're so concerned with, that we're pumping out of the ground for nothing and selling it it's for a big price, and therefore we put in a dictator. And by the way, there's people who are building solar panels making $1 million a year, and I've just got another phone call from someone who's going to do solar panels on our property, are making a fortune, and they're literally putting dictators in so they can get the different parts of the panels, that they can get them at a cheap price or no price by putting dictators in so they can make solar panels. But that still fits your criteria of being greedy. So people who are making billions of dollars making solar panels are still being greedy because they're putting dictators in so they can get their natural resources out of the ground, like the barium or the cobalt for our batteries, for us, and the stuff to make the glass with, and the stuff to make. They still need heat to make the glass. They need the oil to heat up the glass or the natural gas. So we're doing the same exact thing that we're doing the people who are making the $1 billion making fuel, taking fuel out of the ground, putting in dictators there. So what is the difference? It's just your perception.
Big difference.
Well, I don't see the difference. What's the difference?
It's very bad for people to be putting that, getting oil from under the ground over there, and then bringing it over here, selling it. Not only are we propping up, dictators over in the Middle East, like in Saudi Arabia, which is number 6 on the list of dictatorships in the whole world, and they get most of their weapons from countries like us, and then we get a good price on oil.
Aren't we doing the same? But aren't we doing the same? Aren't we doing the same exact thing by taking cobalt out of, let's say, Africa, and then we're putting dictators in there and getting our uranium and our other natural resources from them, and making billion, and those people make the same millions to billions of dollars. It's the same thing. It doesn't matter whether it's over there in for oil, or in Africa for the natural resources in Africa. It's still a form of making money on money and hurting people.
But you gave another example, which I cannot agree with. If they are building solar panels and it costs them so much money, and then they want to add like 5% on that to sell those solar panels.
They're not. They're quadrupling their money. They're doing the same exact thing they do with oil. Otherwise, they'd be in the oil business.
I am with a group called Solarize. There's Solarize groups all over the world. I'm just with a local group.
Yeah, they're hiring big solar companies who are making billions of dollars, putting dictators in to take stuff out of parts of Africa and different parts of the world. It's the same thing.
Can we talk about that after we take a break?
Yeah, we certainly can.
And
And this is where the break comes in, because everybody's got to do it their own way. And when we take our break, this woman who's going to sing, her name is Kim Wallach, and she wrote a song called "We All Eat French Fries," and we all got to do it up. But she's very simply says, "Do what you got to do, but stop. We got to make peace and stop killing people." And she don't believe it. Just eat French fries and stop the wars. And here she goes. I'm going to play Kim Wallach now, and she's going to play "We All Eat French Fries." We'll be back in about 2 minutes.
The world has trouble. Everyone knows there's garbage in all of our lives. We try to get through it each our own way. And for me, I just eat French fries. Some may take vitamins A, B, and C. Tofu, granola, brown rice. They all give me wheat germs and brewer's yeast, and I put it on my French fries. Some watch the stars, have their charts done, and read all about every sign. I wonder if Saurians every full moon pig out like me on French fries. Some got religion, devotion, and guilt, charity and grace are divine. I hear things are hotter than ever in hell, but in heaven do they have French fries? Some say the army, bombs and guns will one day save all of our lives. I don't believe it. Heat up your pans, make peace, and lots of French fries. This old world has trouble. Everyone knows there's garbage in all of our lives. We try to get through it each our own way, and for me, I just eat French fries.
And for Kim, she just eats French fries, but she don't believe that the armies and the guns and the military is going to save all of our lives. And I agree with her, and you agree with it too, Dennis. But you're burying your head. I think when we have belief systems that. Like, I think solar and renewable energy is a very good idea. And they just came out with something now that corn ethanol for fuel is not a good idea, but garbage alcohol fuel is a great idea, because you're using waste product and turning it into a fuel that runs your automobile. Solar would do the same thing, but look at the damage we're doing with batteries when we run our cars. And I have a battery operated car, but look at the damage we're doing in the environment by making the solar panels, by the way, and making batteries. And I'm for renewable energy. So we're taking the lesser of the two evils to help ourselves keep a good quality of life, are we not?
But all you have to do, Jeff, is just build those solar panels, put them on the roof, and then you're done.
Yeah, but how much damage did we do? How much damage are we doing through the environment by building those solar panels or that wind generator or that biomass fuel? How much damage are we doing as a species?
I would say less damage than we are doing right now by getting that fossil fuel and putting it in the car. You and I would not want to get behind that car and breathe in what comes out of the exhaust pipe. And we are doing real damage on what's going into the atmosphere. There's something called climate change, global warming. And it really is happening. Nobody is disputing it now because even the oceans are rising because so much snow and ice is melting around the North and the South Pole, and the oceans are rising, islands are disappearing. So nobody is disputing about climate change. It's really happening, and they're saying, you know, there's no going back. So we got to be careful. If it goes overboard, you know, we won't be on this planet much longer.
Well, that's true, but maybe that's our purpose, is to wipe out this planet. I mean, wipe out our species. Maybe that's us. Maybe that's going to be maybe that's why we're put here. Could that be why we're here, is to wipe out our species?
Wow. You know that we used to have 9 planets. Remember that 9 planets, and now we were told, oh no, there's only 8 planets. Don't, you know, not Pluto. You remember it was Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, and then they said, don't count Pluto, because, I mean, we're being brainwashed. All those years, we said Pluto is a planet. We say Pluto the planet. Then we have to add all those other planets out there in our own solar system, and then it's much more than 9. So they said, well, then forget it. Pluto's not there. There's only 8. Well, if you look out there, it's unbelievable that there are, just like I mentioned our solar system, there are 400 billion stars in our galaxy.
But Dennis, what does that, hold on, you just went into a cul-de-sac to talk about something totally different. Why are we here is the question. Are we polluting the planet? Or what are we doing? Why are we on the planet? What is if we have a soul, like you were talking about earlier, and well, I don't even believe that. I mean, my thing is just, I think we're here that we can work with, we're evolving to a point where we could probably work together to help other species on the world and to make it a great place to be. But I don't know if that's the answer. That's my hope, that's my idea of why we may be here. And I think the reason why we're not getting there is because of our economic system. And that's why I keep on going to that. If we could go go ahead.
Are some behaviors at various levels of our society that distort, have distorted the economic. It's not that it was a bad idea to represent gold with paper and I mean, it isn't that the manner of exchange and stuff that we've refined of goods and services, the exchange of goods and services, being symbolically represented by paper or by virtual stuff, in the stock market and stuff. It's the way that people have used and distorted this system to their own, and you can probably say there may be psychopathic motivations that, in the minds of some of the people that have distorted this system. And so it's not that, this whole paper, virtual money, exchange of goods and services type system, with a different goal and premise, which is, not just profit, but the provision of the basic needs that people have to survive, before people go ahead and use the system for, enhancing their wants and things like that. If that were the goal, we wouldn't have a problem with, the way that our money system has evolved. It's the purpose of it that's a problem. It's how it's been distorted by a relatively small group of highly motivated individuals. over history, and they keep passing their way of operating on to the next generation, because we do learn through imitation of each other. And of course, when anyone sees someone being successful, whatever the definition of success is at the time, they try to imitate that. And we end up with sometimes really bad successful stuff being passed along that, generation to generation, and damaging, most of the human population in the process. I guess, if the feeling is that you want a species to survive into the future, it's not going to survive with just a tiny little minority of individuals who are competing with each other. And it's only going to survive, with a interesting and creative diversity amongst its species. That's where survival. I mean, if that's your goal, I don't know. I don't think that people think about that in general. The future of our genus, our species.
Yeah, but see, that's the whole point. Why what you're saying is, if we have lack of diversity, then we're going to be homogenized to do all the same thing. And once everyone's homogenized, just like we use the same kind of, grow the same crops on certain soils, we deplete the soil. And that's what happens in a cycle. And we see that as a species, we know that that's not a good idea. And we're homogenizing all of humanity. And therefore, we may wipe ourselves out because of that homogenization. And we're also competing with each other on an economic game that is literally killing each other out. And eventually, if they continue with the way we're doing things, we're going to wind up with a nuclear mess that'll wipe out our species, plus many other species will be wiped out. And then the planet will continue to do what it does. It'll re-evaluate different kinds of species on the planet that'll surface. And it'll be another species, whether it's from outer space or from wherever we want to imagine it comes from. But the true problem is the way we live our life because of the economic system. That's right in front of our face, and we can see that. And everybody in the world understands it's about money. It doesn't have to be. If you go to China, they're going to say it's all about money. If you go to India, it's all about money. And it's about surviving, but using money as the middleman. And whether you use solar energy or fossil fuel energy, it's still about the economic system. It has nothing to do with the energy source. I agree with you, Dennis, that it's a better energy source with renewable energy, and I've said that for 30 years, than fossil fuel energy. Fossil fuel should be used as the condiment to make the renewable energy, like the salt and the pepper or the ketchup, putting on the main course. But it shouldn't be used as the main course. I've been saying that for over 30 years. But you can't be environmentally sound unless you're economically secure. So we got to fix the economic system to make that happen. Now, is that clearer than I've ever said before?
Well, that's why I use the word reform government if it ever gets dysfunctional, because that is a direction that we're going in right now.
What direction? Hold it. What direction are we going in now?
A dysfunctional government that needs reform.
Okay, but what direction are we going in? Aren't we doing the same old crap we've done before?
That's why I mentioned that man, Alexei de Tocqueville, because he said, I'm sorry, this isn't going to last until, in other words, the rich, powerful people can buy and pay for politicians and mainstream media, so we get brainwashed when we turn on Fox News or whatever. We have to be careful that we don't go in a worse direction.
Well, I'm coming to a conclusion that NPR is just as bad as Fox News. They're all about the same.
Okay.
They're all about the same. All the politicians are about the same, whether they're Democrats or Republicans or Greens. They're all playing the same game. Whatever. When I ran for office on the independent ticket,
What's describing is that the politicians around the world, they collude with each other.
right.
But their collusion is not a true, marriage of the minds. What they're doing is colluding until they feel they've attained enough power to then strike down the person they've been colluding with. I mean, it's not a situation that, it's always a struggle. It's always with people who do this kind of thing. It's not, there's no love among thieves. There's no honor among thieves. They collude with each other in order to then stand on top of the person they were colluding with, and then go to the next thing and the next thing. And politicians do this endlessly. I mean, you can see this. And they are the enforcers. They are the enforcers of the laws that the rest of the population has to abide by, and the enforcers of the economics.
Right.
And those twin things are enough to suppress the rest of the population of the earth.
And there are countries that have actually tried to reform things, like 100 years ago, over in Europe, Italy, and Germany, and they really wanted to reform things. But then we had to send our troops over there. Have you ever heard of something called World War I and World War II?
But what was that? What did we send our troops over there for?
Well, because they wanted to stop this capitalism over there and move over towards socialism. I won't say communism. That's probably going a little too far.
Well, what is the
But
difference?
honestly-
What is the difference between capitalism and socialism?
Oh, wow. There's a big difference between capitalism, which is what we have in this country, and socialism, which, you might say, mentioned...
Whoa. So what you're saying to me is that we shouldn't have any free school from kindergarten up to 12th grade. It shouldn't be open to the population. And no human being in the world should ever get hospitalization at all. And we shouldn't have free roads or people can drive on, and you shouldn't be able to use, you shouldn't be able to have a food bank or have a church, right? Is that true capitalism?
Well, capitalism is, basically you get what you pay for.
Right. So there should be no churches. There should be no churches. There should be no one with handouts. If they don't eat, they die. So therefore, why shouldn't we just keep, this should be a true capitalist country would never have schools that people were trained on. They shouldn't have any churches. They shouldn't have any handouts. There shouldn't be anyone, if anyone's lying on the street dying, they should be left to die. That's true capitalism, isn't it?
Yes, and we are moving in this country towards something called education, which free school.
I'm trying to clarify something. So we don't really have true capitalism in this country, do we?
Well, I'd say 99% capitalism.
How do you know that? Now you don't. There's no way of measuring that. But we don't have true capitalism in this country. We have some socialist. We have some socialist thinking in this country, don't we?
Oh, I'm talking to one of the best examples right now.
But we do have But I am a capitalist, and people get mad at me when I say that because they're taking it to an extreme. I'm telling you that there is no such thing as capitalism, and there is no such thing as socialism, and there's no such thing as communism. There's just no such thing. It's how we interpret that on a subjective basis. And the reason why there's no, and
no such thing as the herm.
well, there is
No
no,
such thing.
the herm, there's no such thing as the herm. The herm is a measurement. It is no such a thing. There's no such a thing as gravity, because gravity is a measurement. Once we name gravity, it becomes real. There's no such thing as time. But once we agree to a measurement, then it becomes real because we agree upon it and we can measure it. I asked my daughter, go ahead.
Here we've come to my point earlier, that our ability to communicate these kind of complex ideas to each other is our unique ability and our advantage as a species. It's just incredible. But, you know, we haven't named everything that's important yet, and we'll continue to have to do this throughout our existence as a species. It's an ongoing thing. And what we're trying to say with our programming is there's something that needs to be named and agreed on by the human species right now. And that is the human renewable energy measure. It has to be part of the economic system. It has to guarantee every human born on this earth food, shelter, and education.
Now, Dennis, what Susan just said is very important, because what she was saying is because of the way we measure things and name things, like there's no such a thing as gravity, but we know we've named it, and then we can say, oh, it's the thing that falls from the sky, and we're going to measure it, and we're going to call it gravity. There's no such thing as time, but we know that the sun appears to come up every day around the world, and we have agreed upon it. I want to give you a little story. My granddaughter and I take a ride, Susan and my granddaughter take a ride, and we drive from point A to point B. And I'll look at a red barn and I'll say, look, Illyria, there's a red horse. And she said, no, Grandpa, it's a red barn. It's not a horse. And I say, how do you know that? And she says, because we've all named it and we agree upon that. It's not a horse, it's a barn. So we've agreed upon the name for that. And like you use the word greed, most people will agree with you that if someone takes more than they need, they are greedy. But that's subjective, and there's no way to measure it. That's why I argue with you about the word greed. We know there's a word because we agree upon the subjective idea of the word, but it's not, it's subjective. It's no way to physically say that's greed because it's amorphous. A barn is something you can physically see. A horse is something we can physically see. So a red barn is not a red horse, it's a red barn. And the reason why it's a red barn is we all agree upon it in a language. That's what Susan was saying. And we're trying to get the herm, which is nothing more than a concept and a word that can be agreed upon by two simple measurements. The time you live in life that we've agreed upon, the 80 years of age, and the amount of energy you need to stay alive and have your shelter. Those are the two measurements that makes up the HRM. It can't be denied. It can't be denied the way we can't deny that time goes by. It can't be denied. Where greed can be questioned. The amount of money someone makes to be greedy can be questioned. The amount of money someone gets for minimum wage can be questioned. It's subjective. We're trying to get an objective measurement in the language so we can measure it. I don't know how to explain that. It's just a way of getting a measurement into language. So the word greed would actually be measurable. So the word, as a matter of fact, it wouldn't even be there, because if you can measure with the HRM, you can measure that, greed couldn't happen. It would just be people who are ambitious and want to work harder. So that would not be greed. Go ahead.
I'll jump in right here because I think you explained it very well. But there has to be a certain mechanism within every human mind, and everybody comes to these things a little differently because we're all individuals, and we come to understanding at different points and in different ways. And, that's why we keep broadcasting and trying to talk about this concept, and over and over and over again, and maybe get a little better at saying it. But ultimately, what's going to have to happen is something that's very intangible and very, we really don't know what creates understanding, common understanding amongst people. We don't understand that mechanism completely, but there is a grain in every, I believe, in every human that is holding. There is some, what would you call it, lizard brain in there, or ancient mind within us that is holding these concepts, and they will surface within each of us when it's finally needed. And we're asserting that this point in history has arrived when this is needed. This agreement is needed amongst humans, and it will evolve. It's because the concept is already within us all. We understand, the fairness of it, the morality of it. The concept is within us all already. And just the surfacing of it, that is a more, we cannot determine at what time it will surface. We're hoping it will surface soon. I guess this is silent. Is there silence for a reason?
No, go ahead. So you're saying that our evolution, we're coming toward our evolution process, that we can evolve to the next level.
I think we already, as a species, contain this concept within us. This concept of the human renewable energy measure, we have it, and we unconsciously understand it. We just haven't brought it out and named it and are using it yet to our advantage.
I agree with that. And I think that when you hear the Pope talking about we need to control the economy, not the economy controlling us, he didn't use those words, but similar to it. And you hear Obama saying we got to go what's fair. We're getting there. We're moving in that direction.
Various sources, there are, this concept is creeping out, and people are, talking more aggressively about it, more loudly, and we'll see. It would be so amazingly exciting if we could live to see it happen, but you just don't know.
That's right. Well, we'll keep on working, because I can tell you a fact: if we do nothing, nothing will happen. That's what Zen said. But if we do something, something may happen. We are getting to the end of our program. Thank you, Dennis. And I want to ask you, next time we talk, I want to find out what the Topophil said to fix these problems. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back on. We'll be back Friday night.
Bye.
Your neighbors out of work because they closed the factory. You try to stretch your paycheck, but it's never quite enough. So energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some deals about. It all comes down to energy. Fossil fuel affects our lives like ripples on a lake. Cars and farms and factories and trucks. Supplies go down and prices soar, our futures are at stake. And when it's gone, it won't come back, and we'll be out of luck. Oh, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought.
It all comes down to energy. We can get our energy from corn and grass and trees. Even trash converts to biofuels. Break loose the stranglehold of oil. Renewables can fuel the world. We're here to spread the news. No energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone, but here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.